Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Namarancheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Rashtraprayesha Udreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Shranvata Swakatha Krishna Punyashravana Kirtanaha Hridyantastoya Bhadrani Vidinoti Sahritsatam. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 14, verse 41. The verse, Tada Vishveshwara Kruddho Bhagavaloka Bhavanaha Anishyati Avatiryaso Yatadrin Sat Shataparvadrik. Word to word translation, Tada, at that time, Vishwa Ishwaraha, the Lord of the universe, Kruddha, in great anger, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Loka Bhavanaha, desiring the welfare of the people in general, Hanishyati, will kill, Avatirya, discerning himself, Asau, he, Yata, as if, Adreen, the mountains, Shata Parvadrik, the controller of the thunderbolt, Indra. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Aveshwaran Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. At that time, the Lord of the universe, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, will descend and kill them, just as Indra smashes the mountains with his thunderbolts. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, the Lord descends as an incarnation to deliver the devotees and kill the miscreants. The Lord of the universe and of everything would appear to kill the sons of Diti because of their offending the devotees of the Lord. There are many agents of the Lord, such as Indra, Chandra, Varuna, and goddess Durga or Kali, who can chastise any formidable miscreants in the world. The example of mountains being smashed by a thunderbolt is very appropriate. The mountain is considered the most strongly built body within the universe. Yet, it can be easily smashed by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead does not need to descend in order to kill any strongly built body. He comes down just for the sake of his devotees. Everyone is subject to the miseries offered by the material nature. But because the activities of miscreants, such as killing innocent people and animals or torturing women, are harmful to everyone and are therefore a source of pain for the devotees, the Lord comes down. He descends only to give relief to his ardent devotees. The killing of the miscreant by the Lord is also the mercy of the Lord towards the miscreant, although apparently the Lord takes the side of the devotee. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference between his activities of killing the miscreants and favoring the devotees. Let's offer prayers and we'll have some discussion on this verse. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishram Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you everyone for joining the discussion. Before we get into the discussion of this specific verse, I just wanted to talk about today. Today being the appearance day of Sri Srivas Thakur, who was a very integral part of Gaura. Like today is the appearance day of Srivas Thakur, and his personality, if you look through the Gaura Lila, was quite an integral part of all the Gaura Lila through from the time of Mahaprabhu's appearance till he took sannyas, till the time Mahaprabhu was in the Navadvip Dham. Srivas Thakur and by his extension, his extended family and other devotees were quite an integral part of the whole Gaura Lila. And for me personally, also one of the most cherishing and soul nourishing aspects of the Krishna consciousness through my initial early days was hearing Gaur Lila, especially the pastimes that used to happen in Srivas Angan. So when, as part of my preparation, when I saw that today was the appearance day of Srivas Thakur, I kind of wanted to discuss something about him. And then we'll also try to talk about this specific verse through one of the pastimes of Srivas Thakur, the two aspects that Srila Prabhupada is talking here, which is of Supreme Personality of Godhead's mercy. The two aspects of mercy which Srila Prabhupada is referring in his purport is basically the killing or punishment, and then the other is where he says the relief aspect of the mercy. So, but before getting into the discussion of the pastime that we would like to discuss in relation to this verse, we'll also slightly, for short time, also discuss the specific prominence of Srivas Thakur within the Gaura Lila, and then kind of go from there into the specific pastime that we want to go. So, as we all know, in the beginning of Chaitanya Charitamrita, before Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami actually starts the whole Gaura Lila, the whole first chapter and then the subsequent chapters is basically about, he talks about the philosophy, the tattva, and much before that, he offers his obeisances to all the devotees. And in that sequence, he starts off by glorifying and paying his obeisances to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he glorifies and pays his obeisances to Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and then he pays obeisances to Sri Advaita Prabhu. And after that, once he has done to all these three personalities, then he goes on to explain what is called as the Panchatattva. The verse as it goes is Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam, Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam, Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam, Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. So he says Namami, he's offering his obeisances to the Krishna's Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam. So the five aspects or the five features, as Srila Prabhupada translates it as the five features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which are non-different from him, are the Bhakta Rupa. The Bhakta Rupa means the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is in the form of a devotee. And within the Panchatattva that we all know, that's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has come, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, who has come in the form of the devotee. And then the Swarupakam, which means expansion of a devotee, and that expansion of a devotee is Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And then Bhaktavataram, which is the incarnation of a devotee, that's Sri Advaita Acharya. And then Bhakta or Bhaktakya, which basically means known as a devotee, which is Bhakta, and that's Sri Srivas Thakur. And then Bhakta Shaktikam, that is the Gadadhar Pandit, which is who is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we see in the Panchatattva, Srivas Thakur plays the role of the devotee. And it's also interesting that Srivas Thakur is basically an expansion of Narada Muni himself. And within the Panchatattva, the same role that Narada Muni does all through Srimad Bhagavatam, where he's giving instructions to almost everyone in Srimad Bhagavatam and kind of setting example for everyone to kind of follow in their own journey of Krishna consciousness. In similar ways, Srivas Thakur, like how Narada Muni does, is also in the form of a devotee, is also giving us an example through his various, I mean, if you have to get into the specific pastimes, there are like huge thousands of pastimes of Srivas Thakur, but all through those pastimes, there is one consistent thing, is he's kind of always setting as an example of how we can, in any of the instances that we take, how can we follow through in his footsteps and then kind of ultimately achieve the darshan of Sri Chaitanya in Srivas Angan. And as I was saying, coming back to the specific verse, as I was referring initially, Srila Prabhupada in his purport beautifully kind of he discusses multiple things, but ultimately he is basically talking about two aspects of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the mercy, two aspects of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where here as Kashyapa is basically discussing about how, because of the apparent mistake that Mother Diti did, what and the previous two verses also talks about the troubles the twin boys who would eventually be called as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu would cause to everyone. I think the description comes as that they will they will cause trouble to all the three planets of the material universe. And then eventually he says that because then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the well-wisher of all living entities, and with that, when we say that he is the well-wisher of all living entities, which eventually means that he was also, whatever he is doing here as descending and killing them, is also as an aspect of well-wishing to these two personalities, not just to the people who are being suffered, but also to the people who are causing that suffering, which is these two. And then Prabhupada beautifully explains that as the killing of the miscreant by the Lord is also the mercy of the Lord towards the miscreant. And then finally, Prabhupada ends that as there is no difference between his activities of killing the miscreants and favoring the devotees. So, so the two aspects of the mercy that Srila Prabhupada is basically talking here is killing, or in some cases, it could just be the punishment. It might not be the killing of the physical body, but just kind of punishment or punishing of in the case of, as we see in the case of Durvasa Muni that happened during the Ambarish Maharaj's pastime, it could be just be the punishing aspect of the mercy of the Lord. And then the other aspect is favoring or giving relief. Sometimes it just could be as is happening here by killing Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. What the Supreme Lord is doing is favoring the devotees who are undergoing that terrible suffering, like it was happening with Prahlad Maharaj or various other devotees. So these two aspects, let's try to see through one of the pastimes of Srivas Thakur, and how is it that the Supreme Lord kind of achieves both this aspect of how do we understand that punishing is also an aspect of the mercy, and also how the giving relief is also the aspect of mercy. So as we all understand, Shiva Sangan, which is essentially the kind of the root area from where the pastimes of Mahaprabhu's Nitya Leela of chanting of the holy names has kind of started once Mahaprabhu came back from Gaya. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya after the disappearance of his father, and then there once he met Ishwara Puri, and he came back a completely changed person. Before that, he was just a Nimai Pandit. And then once he came back, then he was the devotee Nimai. And he started having kirtans because till this point, Mahaprabhu did not start um, the the Nagar Sankirtan part of his pastimes yet, because that eventually happens when the Chand Kazi pastime happens, where he broke the Mridanga, and then what Srila Prabhupada calls it as the original non-cooperation movement. But at this point, and the pastime that we are discussing, that pastime of Chand Kazi and then the whole non-cooperation movement hasn't started. So at this time, Mahaprabhu and then very few close devotees like the Panchatattva, and then very few devotees like Murari Gupta, Haridas Thakur, and very few selected devotees were allowed into Shiva Sangana, and then they used to have all night kirtans. It was Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains as if the nights would never end. So and then there Shiva Sangan was also a kind of witness to some of the wonderful pastimes, like it happened. The example is the Shiva Sangan the Chand Kazi pastime, and then the Mahaprakash Leela, which is a glorious pastime where Mahaprabhu was in this mood of Lord Vishnu for continuous 21 hours. And then also the death and then the revival of the young son of Shiva Thakur. So there was like numerous pastimes that happened in Shiva Sangan. So every day, all the devotees would gather within the house of Shiva Sangan, and then they would have these beautiful, never-ending kirtans behind the closed doors. And um, I remember hearing once in one of the classes, always Radharani Maharaj was explaining that um, there will always be period whenever there are devotees who are worshipping and performing this sankirtana, there will always be devotees, there will always be people who are atheistic and who kind of would never understand and want to kind of do the mudslingering on the devotees and then create this unnecessary horrible gossip on devotees, and these people will always be there. And true to that word, even during the times of Srivas Thakur, there were, because it was only a few selected devotees that were allowed into the Srivasangan. There were a lot of atheistic. There was one section of people who were atheistic and would kind of criticize all these devotees that these people are not qualified to read the shastras as we are. As they are just creating nonsense, and then it's a sound pollution and all of that. And then there was the other section of people who were these ritualistic brahmanas who would criticize the devotee, saying these people are not, everybody who are going into this Shiva Sangan, closing the doors, are not qualified to read the Shastras as we do, and then are just creating these nuances by this huge sound. And then, in fact, one day, because one of the Brahmins was not allowed to enter into the Shiva Sangan, the next day when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he actually caught hold of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Brahmin thread, and then he tore it, and then he eventually curses Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that may you never have material happiness. And then so that was the extent to which the people who were kind of not allowed into the Shiva Sangha were having this heavy heart of jealousy and then envy. And but for all the devotees, it was kind of a no-brainer that if it was not that the Srivas Thakur was not allowing them into the house. It was the instruction of Mahaprabhu himself, where he didn't wanted everybody to come in, because till this point he kind of publicly, and he was demonstrating some of the pastimes which he would never kind of demonstrate in front of not so close devotees. And within that time, there were numerous people who were these envious people, and one among such envious person was a Brahmin named Gopal Chapala. And the interesting thing was, he was not only envious of devotees, and especially of Srivas Thakur, but the interesting thing in his case is he was hating Srivas Thakur, and the reason was not that he was not being allowed into the house, or not that he was getting the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. None of those. His pure hate was, the reason was just that he was envious of Srivas Thakur, that he was getting a lot of recognition around the area as this pure Vaishnava devotee whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has kind of placed in the pedestal, where his house was kind of the epicenter of the whole Sankirtan movement that was happening. And that was something that Gopal Chapal was not able to take. And once the night was done and then all the devotees kind of left, this Gopal Chapal, quite early in the morning, before anybody would wake up, brought in all the paraphernalia that was used usually in the worship of Mother Durga, and then he spread it across in front of the Srivas Angan. Srivas Angan being the house of Srivas Thakur, he spread it in front of the corridor of Srivas Angan, and then he was secretly hiding in a place, thinking that, hey, now it would be interesting to see, because at that point in Bengal, there were either two kinds of worship. One was either the worship of Mother Durga, or one was predominantly, we also had, I'm sure, like we also had other demigod worship, but predominantly the major section of society were either Shaktites, which means they were worshipping Mother Durga, or it was Vaishnavas who were worshipping Supreme Lord Krishna. And his idea was, by having this paraphernalia in front of Shiva Sangan, his idea was that now all the Vaishnavas would reject Srivas Thakur, because everybody thought that he is this pure Vaishnava devotee, but what is he doing is worshipping Mother Durga, and that kind of exposes his duplicitous mentality. And in the same way, all the Shaktites would also reject him, because internally, even though he's a worshipper of Durga, he's not being honest about it, and then he's just portraying himself as a Vaishnava. So his idea was, by just doing that, by just putting all the paraphernalia in front of Shiva Sangan, his idea was that he'll be rejected by both the Vaishnavas and then the Shaivites. But on the contrary, it's interesting when Srivas Thakur, his idea was that before Srivas Thakur wakes up, all the neighbors would come and then they would create this huge ruckus and kind of create huge fight that would eventually be kind of end up dethroning Srivas Thakur from his place as this highly respectable person in the town. But what happened on the contrary was Srivas Thakur himself came out of the house and then he started shouting and calling everybody. And then he said, "Hey, please come and see in front of my house. I'm not the person whom you are claiming me to be. I'm not this pure-hearted Vaishnava who has rendered his heart and life to the Supreme Lord. But I'm deeply rooted in the mode of ignorance, and then I'm a tamoguni. And the proof is what you see in front of my house. You might all be thinking that I'm inside doing all this Sankirtan and dancing and doing Kirtan with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but what I'm actually doing is the worship of Mother Durga." And then he just went on kind of criticizing himself, saying that at least now try to kind of not pay me respect and then kind of understand what I do, and I do not deserve any of the adulation that you're giving me. And as Srivas Thakur was going on, everybody felt so ashamed that Srivas Thakur had to go through this experience of being blamed. And none of them responded back to Srivas Thakur in words. But what they eventually did was they in their core of their hearts, they seeked forgiveness for the offense that some other person, they didn't even know who was the one who did that, but in their core of the hearts, they wanted to kind of seek forgiveness for the apparent blunder and then the offense that was committed in front of the Shiva Sangha, the most holiest of the places. And then they just didn't speak anything. They came, all of them came and then started cleaning the whole area and then eventually pacified Srivas Thakur. So this, in the case, as Kashyapa Muni is explaining, what Gopal Chapala did is kind of, to a degree, the Kali Yuga version of what Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu did, which basically in the verse 39 and 40, we see Kashyapa was explaining that one of the things Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were doing was enraging great souls and also causing trouble to all the three planetary systems. And in this case, Gopal Chapala, in his tiny powers, the kind of minimized version to what Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were doing, even with his tiny powers also, he was still kind of enraging all these great souls who saw the trouble and then the pain that Srivas Thakur had to go through just by this experience. And as Srila Prabhupada explained in the verse, it says, yeah, and then he says that such as killing innocent people and animals or torturing women are harmful to everyone and therefore a source of pain for devotees. In this case, it was not that the devotees were in front of the Srivas Sangha and kind of went through that, but just seeing the pain and then the trouble that Srivas Thakur and then the apparent offense that was done towards Srivas Thakur, it pained not just all the devotees, but in fact Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And as it happened, as a result of this specific act, even though nobody knew that it was Gopal Chapal who actually did this offense himself, but as a result, in few days, Gopal Chapal was affected by severe leprosy, and then was eventually, because at that point leprosy was kind of a contaminated disease, he was not only let go from his house, but he was also let go from the town. In it was severe leprosy, not just like a tiny bit of leprosy. And then he was in very high intense pain and was living, because he was not allowed to live with anybody else. He was living alone on the banks of Mother Ganga. And then one day, by somehow, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was crossing that way, and then this again is a kind of what happens now is kind of the representation of the aspect of punishing mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or the Supreme Lord. Is Gopal Chapala understands that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is this quite elevated, and maybe also had understanding of that he's Krishna himself, because he's been hearing everywhere across him. So he might not have, like at this point, Gopala Chapala did not kind of get fully convinced, but he wanted to get off this suffering. And then he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and was seeking forgiveness, claiming that I am your devotee. Please give me shelter and then take me out of this horrible suffering. And then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Gopal Chapala approaching, and when he heard that he was claiming that he is his devotee, and then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was seeing Gopal Chapala, his eyes were so red as if like there was a fire emitting from his eyes. And then in such anger, he said that for the mistake that you have done, you have to, there is no way that your suffering would end. Because you have offended my devotee, you have to continue suffering for the next tens of millions of years. And just saying that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't kind of turn back or say anything, and then he just walked back. And after some days, Sri Chaitanya was again crossing the same place again. And in this time, because of the just being in the presence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then kind of undergoing that whole austerity of kind of facing the wrath of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was an internal transformation within Gopala Chapala. And at this time, he had this genuine mood of repentance, which was not there in the first case. At this time, he had this genuine mood of repentance, and he was also having this genuine mood of humility. In that genuine mood of humility and then the mood of repentance, he approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he said that, "Oh my Lord, for what I have done to your devotee, I deserve more pain than this. But somehow this is the situation I am in." And it's interesting that this time he did not request Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to let go of his suffering, but the request that he made was, "Can you please kindly tell me how can I atone for my sins?" So his ultimate reasoning for his aim was not kind of to get out of this suffering, but he just wanted to kind of atone for the offense that he has committed towards Srivas Thakur and every other devotee. And interestingly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that I do not have any power to forgive you or give the possible atonement for your offense. Only Srivas Thakur could be the one. And it's interesting, which happens in every pastime that we see where a devotee was offended, the devotee never takes the offense. And the offense was in fact not even committed towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a direct degree. But even though the devotee has not taken the offense, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did take the offense. And the punishment in some ways is coming through the agents of the Lord. But the Lord or the agents who are kind of awarding the punishment doesn't have to say, kind of quote unquote, the power to let go of that suffering. The letting go of that suffering, the power kind of rests within the devotee to whom the offense was made, which kind of is not only seen here, but also in other pastimes like Durvasa Muni and other things. And the moment Gopal Chapala approached Srivas Thakur, because he was not even considering that as an offense, Srivas Thakur embraced him and then gave all his blessings. And the moment Srivas Thakur kind of wholeheartedly accepted Gopal Chapala's leprosy he was completely cured of his leprosy. And then he eventually became one of the close, intimate devotees of Srivas Thakur, and then by extension, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And as we see here, as Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, in both punishing and giving relief, it is the mercy of the Lord. As we see in the first instance, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kind of was this angry person, when he was saying that you have to, not just this lifetime, but you have to undergo this case of leprosy for tens of millions of lifetime. In a case, it is nothing but a punishment that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving to Gopala Chapala. But if not for that experience and having that audience to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, would have never had this transformation of heart, understanding that what I did is a severe mistake. And just because, so through punishing him, and in other cases also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kind of demonstrate, whenever somebody is not to the degree that they have to be, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the first instance that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does is he kind of punishes. And when in that mood of punishment, when that mercy flows, when we are able to accept punishment also as a mercy of the Lord, that's when, as Lord Brahma claims, when we are able to accept every tribulation and turmoil that goes on in our life. I'm sure it is not at all like there is a lot that to be discussed, and uh, His Holiness Rompan Maharaj kind of quite eloquently discusses in this verse. Also, whenever he's talking about the verse of Lord Brahma, when he's praying to Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's quite a detailed subject, but just because of the lack of time, as Brahma explains, that when we are in that humble position, accepting the punishment also as an aspect of the mercy, that's when we actually become eligible to actually receive the relief aspect of also as the mercy, which happened in the case of Gopala Chapala, where because he was in the genuine position of repentance and humility, are able to accept the punishment also as the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Eventually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did go back. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like Mahaprabhu could have just rejected him and never went into the same way as Gopala Chapala did. But in doing that, he was kind of showing this aspect of mercy. And the first thing that he did was kind of punishing. And then once, because Gopala Chapala accepted that position of punishment and all of that, eventually he was able to also get the relief aspect and able to kind of get into the inner circles of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's circle, and eventually kind of also get into Shiva Sangan and be witness to some of the amazing pastimes that happened. And as I said, there are obviously much more nuances to this aspect of accepting punishment. I'm kind of nowhere there. This is something I don't claim that I'm kind of there or something, but just respecting the day that we have kind of in remembrance of Srivas Thakur and the glorious pastimes that he has done. I just wanted to kind of link the pastime of Srivas Thakur to the theme that Srila Prabhupada is kind of presenting here. And I'm sorry that we couldn't go much deeper into this much nuanced topic of considering the Lord's mercy and then the various aspects. But on this day, I hope may we always approach Srivas Thakur in the genuine mood that Gopala Chapala approached him the second time, where he was in this mood of repentance and in the mood of genuine humility. May we approach Srivas Thakur, and then I'm sure like Srivas Thakur would always be ready to bless us, and may we always be the recipients of the wonderful pastimes of Sri Gaura. I end here. If there are any corrections or comments or questions. And also feedback.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for connecting this verse with Srivas Thakur pastime. So it was very nice the way you took that, how the punishment of Lord Chaitanya is also a blessing, right? So, I mean, otherwise, I mean, whatever punishment that we get, right? So it's not, if it, I mean, that it made him learn a lesson. So then it was like a kind of a blessing for him, right? So instead of suffering through 10 million lifetimes, so he was able to get out of it even in that lifetime. So he was kind of making him realize that otherwise he will continue to make the blunder. So very nice. So thank
Thank
you
you.
for connecting in that nice way. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, then I think we can end. Thank you everyone for joining and encouraging me. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam bhavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.